right, so good evening. We are right at 7:35, so that's great. We can go ahead and start our first Friday of the month, Dimensions of Wellness call. I want to welcome everyone that's online with us today. Excuse me, throat's a little recovering still. We are Facebook Live as well as on the Zoom link. So for anyone that wants to join on the Zoom link, you can go to the Positive Advancement Facebook page and you can click the Zoom link to join if you want to chat. Otherwise, you'll be listening here on the live and walking through this. Our Dimension of Wellness topic for tonight is emotional wellness. And emotional wellness, of course, it encompasses our feelings, our emotions, how we handle and deal with stress. So we'll be talking a little bit about some of those areas today. But first, what is emotional wellness? So the National Center of Emotional Wellness, which is a real thing, defines it as awareness or understanding and acceptance of our feelings and our ability to manage effectively through challenges and change. And just from a historical standpoint, so people understand, wellness, outside of having all of the kind of ancient forms of wellness like Ayurveda and some of the Chinese, traditional medicine that was utilized back in the day, from a Western culture perspective, wellness, we didn't really start thinking about wellness as a thing until around the 1950s. As far as creating programming and having this kind of public consciousness about wellness, it wasn't until about the 50s. And there's no kind of one person that was credited for that idea of emotional wellness. There were, several people. And then, of course, over time, we have all these now dimensions of wellness. And started out with 6, and then it was 8 and 9, and I think now we're up to 12. I mean, the list continues to grow. So some of those dimensions of wellness we will be tackling every month as we go through the 12-month calendar year. And so I'll talk about that later at the end of kind of what we're doing for the next few months through the cycle. But yeah, so that's basically just a little background on where we are with emotional wellness here in Western culture. So today's kind of chat topics that I wanted to really talk about was, one, the impact of emotional wellness on us, our perception, how do we feel, how do we handle our emotions, but also how do we feel that people handle our emotions, but then also the impact of others. So the first thing is the impact on us, the impact on me. How do I handle, understand, and manage my emotions? How do I support and offer love? How am I supporting others? How is that viewed? How do I handle challenges and maintain a positive mindset? Okay. And then the second half of it, I really wanted to take a minute to talk about the impact on others. So how do people receive my emotional responses? Do people around me feel supported and loved? And then how do people perceive my responses to challenges or problems that occur in my personal life or at work? Okay. So just to start, emotional wellness is very challenging. It's one of the most challenging things because it is how we interact with others. It's how we respond to things. It's definitely how we respond to change. It's how we understand our own perspectives on different issues, but also the perspectives of so many other people that we, interact with. It's how we disagree with other people and how that's processed. How do we keep those relationships happy and healthy? And then, how we handle disagreements in an appropriate or inappropriate manner. So those are some of the things that we'll kind of walk through today. So my first question for the floor is, how do I handle, understand, and manage my emotions? And I'll start by saying, you know, for me, I'll start from where I used to be, and then I'll go to where I am now. I used to be very quick to anger. I was not a very good active listener, so I wasn't listening to hear, I was listening to respond. There is a difference. And I think the other part, as far as managing emotions, is I kind of, depending on who the person was, I always had this air of wanting to be right, and would challenge people down to their very last, you know, ability to want to argue with me about wanting to be right. Out of those three things that I just said, I think some of that still exists. I don't think it's as bad. I think I'm really, I've grown a lot, and I'm continuing to grow and challenge myself when it comes to my emotional response. I'm trying to be more cognizant of my behaviors and trying to be more apologetic, because I wasn't very apologetic when I was younger, to really care if someone didn't receive my emotions in the correct way. Sometimes I just, you know, when you're young, you're just like, if you don't like it, that's who I am. So, oh well. So, you know, now I'm trying to be a lot more empathetic. I'm trying to be a lot more cognizant of how people are receiving my emotions and how they feel. You know, just by facial expression, body language, you can really tell how someone's receiving what you say or what you're doing by the way that they respond to you. You can see the shoulder slump. You can see, you know, their face change. You can see the surprise when you say something that really is disrespectful to them. So you can really gauge how to receive, or how people are receiving your emotions and how you're giving, you know, what that perception is. And that's where you're able to make change and put some controls in place, because really our emotions is one area that we can control. Because I always say, you know, if we can control it, we should be taking control. Areas in our lives where we can't control, which is other people and their response to us, that is something that, you know, we have to breathe through. We have to, you know, create action around. But our emotions, you know, we have to self-regulate. And, you know, I actually did a blog on that today. Today's blog was about self-control. So read it if you haven't read it. It gives a lot of good information. But yes, so our emotional impact on wellness, and I don't know if anybody has any input, because I don't see a hand raised or anything on the Zoom or the chat. So if you do want to kind of make a comment, you do have the ability to either raise your hand, or you can go into the chat and give a response, and I can open up kind of the forum, or you can take yourself off mute and, you know, just say, excuse me. So I apologize, but that's how that's how we can connect.
Well, I just like to add in, you know, I'm still a work in progress, of course, when it comes to working on understanding and managing my emotions. I think that's just kind of the journey that all of us go through in life. But I'm certainly not who I was yesterday. And that's just due to growth and maturity. I think, you know, as we're young, you know, there's a lot of pride that's left on our shoulder centered around that word respect. You know, we want the world to respect us. We want, you know, to be validated, you know, and, you know, we want to be somebody. And if it's ever tested, we get tested. And then you just start to learn what's really important in life or what's really not important. You know what I mean? And you begin to start to compartmentalize and choose your battles wisely. You know, and some things just aren't worth it. So it just kind of comes down to that to me nowadays. Is it really worth the stress?
Right.
You know, and it's just a real small, you know, one category that's in that category just continues to become smaller and smaller as I grow through life.
100%. I agree. I mean, and that's the thing. It's is it worth it? And, you know, there's so many relationships that we're involved in, and we have to, you know, try and manage. And, you know, it is important for us to understand which of those relationships is important and thriving and which ones are beneficial, because that's another part of where we struggle, is we will be in these lopsided relationships, putting in a lot of effort, and we're not receiving the benefits because it really should be mutually beneficial. And, you know, having conversations, relationships is one, but even at work, you know, being in a partnership with someone at work where you feel like you're doing more, or they're not hearing you, or your talents aren't being used, being in a relationship with, you know, men and women, when one side of the relationship is not giving or showing the amount of love that the other side is hoping to receive or feels that they're due. Those are, you know, areas where communication is vital. It's the most important. And, you know, just a question to put out there is, you know, how much do we value communication, and how good of a communicator are you? Do you feel like people around you are supported? Do you feel that they feel supported? If you know, if we ask them the question now, do you think the people around you feel supported by you? Do you think they feel loved by you? Do you feel that you show it appropriately at all times? So, you know, that's a food for thought. If anybody wants to respond, that's fine. But, you know, those are a couple of the questions that we need to have out there when we're talking about creating that change and that positive change. And then how are you handling challenges? You know, how do you maintain a positive mindset in a challenge? Sometimes, you know, small things like traffic, you know, people pulling into your parking space. All of these are emotional areas that we can control. We can control our anger. We can control our thoughts. We can control our emotions and our response, either physically or emotionally, to those events. You know, these are things that once you start to control those areas, you'll be able to control so many other areas of your life, and you'll have a different clarity on a lot of things. And I don't know if anybody disagrees or has a different thought on that, but I wanted to share something that, it was a quote that I put into the blog today, and it was by Warren Buffett. And what I liked about the quote is, let's see if I can find it here. I wanted to share that, what he said in that quote, because it made a lot of sense to me. And just by the way, today's blog was self-control, whatever that is. So, but I'll read this first paragraph of the blog just so that it puts a couple things in perspective about the question I asked. So, life is full of unexpected and moderately intense moments. We always resist the temptation to blow a gasket or manage triggers that make us flow out of character. So what is our response to this idea of self-control? I'll use the words of Warren Buffett, who said, "You will continue to suffer if you have an emotional reaction to everything that is said to you. True power is sitting back and observing things with logic. True power is restraint. If words control you, that means everyone else can control you. Breathe and allow things to pass." I thought that was a really great quote because, you know, Warren Buffett, you know, just that one thing saying about true power is sitting back and observing things with logic. And sometimes when we are not mindful, you know, mindfulness is such a big thing because it's you being present in the here and now. It's you focused on the moment that you're sitting in so that you don't miss anything. And a lot of us, you know, a lot of our reactions are based on the things that we missed. Because sometimes it'll be like, oh, you'll yell at someone about whatever they did, or they cut you off, and then you notice something and you'll be like, oh, okay. Never mind. So sometimes it's just not being mindful of the things that are happening around us. Sometimes your anger is 100% validated, but it goes back to your point of, is it important enough for you to have the stress, or for us to carry this weight of frustration? Is it worth it to continue to, curse out the driver that just cut you off or took the parking space from you? Is it worth it for us to get so upset that we go into a 20-minute rant about something that just occurred and has happened and gone? So that, those are the things when we talk about emotional control, when we talk about emotional well-being, our reactions, our response, our reaction to change when something happens and we are not ready to face it. We don't want to deal with it. We're not ready to take steps to get around it. Those are things that we can control, but we've built up this kind of response to society that we don't control it effectively. We're not controlling these things correctly, and our response is so quick because we're just in this fast-paced society. So everything has to be, quick to the punch, and our attitudes are so quick to want to just rush to the negative and not just sitting back and relaxing and figuring out what actually just happened and how you really want to respond to it, and if it's worth even responding to. So there's so many different points to that, and that just takes us into the impacts on others, because there's such a misconception sometimes with that type of impact. How do people receive my emotional responses? I am not good at explaining things all the time. Sometimes I'm not going to say I confuse myself, because I don't confuse myself. I know what I'm trying to say, but people receive it in a way that they don't understand it. And I don't know if it's because we just all don't practice active listening, or if I'm really explaining it incorrectly, to the point where they're not receiving the message. So for me, I've always been super cognizant of how I respond and say things, or if it's a conversation that I'm going to be preparing for, I will have notes in front of me, because it makes it easier for me to reference something and to stay on that level of focus than it is for me to just come off the cuff and try to explain it in that way. And that's just how I've learned to create action around some of the areas where I think I'm not strong. And that's one of the areas. So, what are some of the ways, how do you feel people receive your emotional responses? And that can be anybody jumping in on that one or popping it in the chat. And for those on Facebook Live, we're also on Zoom, so that's why I'm given that option. But how do you guys think people receive your emotional responses?
It's usually misinterpreted.
Yeah. In a negative way, or always negative?
It depends on the situation. I'm a pretty emotional person, to say the least. So when I speak from the heart. I wear it on my sleeve. And so I may stress words in a certain way where someone misperceives where I'm coming from.
Right.
They take it the wrong way.
And I have been there too. I'm a very high-strung. Sometimes I talk aggressively. I don't know if it's aggressively. I don't know the word. I don't know. I'm saying aggressively, but it sounds very smart mouthish. And that can be I know what you meant by it is usually what I get. And even though I'm in that moment, I do know I'm in that moment, and I try to roll it back. I try to scale it back. instead of catching it in the beginning, to know that people don't receive that voice correctly. They don't receive that voice well. So then it's on me to correct my anger or my response, in that moment. Because it is, people do perceive that sometimes just by facial expression or body language that, I can be a little, I don't know, I guess it's pushy, intimidating. I don't know, when we get into like a heated conversation. If I'm passionate about something, it can turn into a very deep, heated conversation for sure. But I always hope and pray that people feel supported by me and loved. Like I don't, I can always come back and accept accountability for my actions, accept consequences. That is something that I think is one of the pluses about me when it comes to communication, that I will at least own it. Even though I may, slip and fall, I will at least own it. So that is something that I will say I do appreciate about me, so that I can say my negative and flip it also with a positive. And then I'm sure, because you're passionate about, the things that you say and how people respond to you, I'm sure on the opposite side of it, I'm sure people do feel that you love them, and that's how they're receiving it as well. It just may be that they're also receiving that, that negative energy from the moment. But that doesn't mean that they don't receive the other side of it as well, if that makes sense to you. So one of the things that, I wanted to kind of walk through as well when we talk about emotional well-being is kind of the physical. So we talked about kind of the mental and how people respond to us and how we respond to them. But let's talk about some of the physical issues that come up when we do not have emotional well-being. When we are imbalanced, when we have emotional imbalance in our lives, one of the first things that can typically happen is stress. It increases stress. Long-term stress leads to, the next phase of weak immune systems or susceptibility to illness, meaning, being able to get sick quicker because your immune system's lower. Sometimes when we're stressed, we're not eating properly, we're not sleeping properly, we're not doing anything properly to our physical man. So of course, those impacts can make us more susceptible, can make us have a lack of concentration. So then you have, your body is just kind of going through the motions every day, and you're not replenishing and rejuvenating because you're in this emotional imbalance. And usually when we're stressed out, or when we have anxiety, or when we're going those impacts can cause a lot of mental health issues. It can cause a lot of, other things to happen very obviously, right? So we do need to create balance when we're going through things. We need to understand the impact of poor emotional wellness. And we need to understand that when we get stuck in these moments of depression, and when we get stuck in these moments of sadness, that we have to pull ourselves out of them, and we need to be able to achieve a strong emotional kind of mindset. And so that's one of the things I wanted to talk about as well, just kind of how do we create that mindset, and what are some of the things you do in order to do that. I know for me, getting into a routine helps me to keep my emotions in check. When you're in a routine, you kind of know the next step that's coming, so you don't have many surprises that will kind of trigger those emotions that you typically don't want to face. For me, creating connections with other people is a good way, because then you have accountability partners that you can talk to, vent to, if you trust them. in order to, kind of walk through some of your issues and concerns as well. So creating a routine, getting into that routine. Sometimes there are changes to the routine. We understand that. But most assuredly, if you can create a consistent routine for yourself, it will help you achieve a stronger emotional wellness. Creating connections with others is just that, it's already very well known that isolationism is not something that creates balance, that creates emotional wellness. We do need to be engaged with people at some level, with others at some level, where we're creating relationships that are positive, that are mutually beneficial and not lopsided, so that we can have that bit of normalcy in what our brains need as far as activity. And then being more active. Always being active, taking walks, being out in nature, finding an exercise routine that works for you, starting a walking group, who knows, whatever works for you, meditation, yoga, swimming, basketball, going running in the mornings, the things that help to keep you active, to keep your body moving. Those are all important because it's a part of that balance. You cannot sit in a chair all day. You cannot sit in the house all day. You cannot sit in a small space all day. You need to really branch out. I tell people, all my clients who are focused on work-life balance, that they need to take the step away from the desk at least for 15 minutes and go get a breath of fresh air, make a cup of tea, whatever, in order to kind of just shut off everything that you're doing just for a couple minutes to allow yourself to rejuvenate, which will help you get through the rest of the day. You just don't know how much 10 or 15 minutes can do to help you get yourself back on track so that you can move on to the next phase of whatever you have going on. Another part of emotional wellness that is probably one of the hardest for a lot of people is practicing forgiveness. And practicing forgiveness is for you, not for the other person. Forgiving someone is the balance that you need to have a sustainable and healthy life. It is the balance that you need to move on from a situation, from the past, from whatever the trauma was, and allow yourself to say, you know what, I'll take what happened and I will take the lessons learned. I'll have the best practices from that event. I will, create action around those things so that it never happens to me again. However, I can't take all those dark emotions. I can't take all that darkness and those feelings with me. And I need to be able to forgive so that I don't forget, but that I can move on. We have to find a place of forgiveness so that we can move forward. And that is for us. It is not for the other person. So keep that in mind, because I know I don't want to forgive them. They don't deserve my forgiveness. It is not about them. It's about you being able to move forward in a place of peace and allow yourself to heal. So please remember that when we talk about forgiveness could be a whole call. I mean, it literally could be a whole call. Accepting rest and sleep is another good one. We have to have balance. When we talk about physical wellness includes, our sleeping habits, our eating habits, our activity, our physical activity, our motivation and movement, doing the things that help to keep our bodies, our physical man, where it needs to be. In order for us to have emotional, social, spiritual, any of the other wellness dimensions of wellness, you have to treat your physical man right. You need to take care of yourself, and you need to be, in the here and now, understanding what is going on with your body. You need a doctor, go see the doctor. You need rest, go rest. You need to go for a walk to get some air, go for the walk and get some air. If you are sitting and yawning and you yawn more than once or twice, 3 times, you need to go to bed. I mean, it's just that simple. So accepting rest, not just going to bed and doing things, but accepting it. Getting to a place in your mind of acceptance that you need to rest, sleep, and allow your body to recharge and heal itself. The other is practicing mindfulness, and I discussed this at the beginning of the call, understanding that being present in the here and now is critically important. We need to always understand the past is the past. We can't worry too much about the future. Your future doesn't even exist, right? Yet you're not there yet. You really need to be worried about where you're at right now, because the choices you make today are the choices that impact your future. If you're worried about the future and you're not living for today, then there is no future for you to be worried about. You know, we have to really keep things in perspective and be mindful of where we're at right now. And being mindful of where we're at right now also includes understanding what's happening around you with your family, with those that you pour into. Because all of us are investing in our kids. We are, doing so much and trying to understand where everybody is. And we have so many stories out there with, I didn't know he was even watching this kind of stuff. And I didn't realize, we just had this week, one of my friends was telling me her son is going through a little bit of an issue because him and a young lady sent pictures of themselves to each other, and those pictures got somehow on the mainstream internet, and they're all now, those two are not friends, of course, anymore. Now the school got involved because the pictures circulated into a different type of chat system, and it was visibly seen by many, and so that violates school rules. And so, there are charges being brought in regards to these individuals, and a third person who was also added to the ring of issues on this particular thing. But just something so small as you doing something like that, sharing a picture, it gets posted online, someone takes that picture and posts it somewhere else, and now these kids, middle school kids, are facing charges where they will probably be suspended from school, have some type of hopefully not potential any type of jail time or anything like that, but still having to do community service, having something on your record, depending on how they're going to actually charge them, whether they're being charged as youth or adults. These are things that we should know our kids are doing. Like, we should be so invested and so mindful in the situations of what they have access to. I have the family link on my phone for Google that sends me stuff when my kids are on their tablets, their laptops, and their phones. So if they downloaded a game, an app, if they saw a certain type of video, you're able to go in there and put restrictions that you don't want them on any videos that have explicit content, or say, 13 and above years old. Like, there are so many ways for us to manage it, even with the lives and the busyness that we have, that we really need to be more mindful and be more in tune. And not to say we're gonna miss stuff. I mean, kids are sneaky. We already know. We've been down that road. We've all done it. We've been there. We've done it. So you're not going to see everything. But for the most part, we should be talking to and training our kids up in the way that they should go. And we need to be cognizant of these things happening around us. It makes no sense for this level of charges on Black men, young Black women. First of all, why are you taking your clothes off and taking a picture and sending it to anybody? These are the things that we need to be talking about with our kids, and understanding why these things are happening around us. It is so impactful. And that's why I set up the youth and teen discussion starting in a couple weeks, because it's just time to bring them in. I mean, it's just too much going on, and we need to be aware of what's happening around us. So that one, practicing mindfulness, it's just important. We need to be mindful. We need to know what's going on right in front of us. But the other leading out of that is, don't be so hard on yourself. Understand that you're human. Things are going to happen. When we are emotionally imbalanced Usually it is a result of something going on in our lives, the impact or consequence thereof. We need to be, compassionate to ourselves, but we need to also have a compassionate accountability, meaning hold yourself accountable to the events and things that happened. Make sure that you are telling yourself that you are responsible, but also give yourself a break and create some action around it, how you want to fix it. Own it and fix it. In the blog, I talked about that today, just about how we need to, accept responsibility. We do have to self-regulate, but we do need to, tap into our own power. We need to, take action and manage our triggers and our impulses. And, when we lose control, when we disconnect, when we hurt others, when we say things that we don't really mean to, but we're just in anger and we're having an emotional roller coaster, we have to accept responsibility and the consequences for those actions. We need to create steps around it. We need to process, knowing that those bridges aren't going to be quickly rebuilt, unfortunately, especially if we hurt someone to the point where, that recovery needs to take a little longer. We need to be empathetic, but we need to have compassionate accountability on those in those times. And then we need to challenge ourselves. We have to attempt to mend that perception. We need to mend the perception that we have no control, that we are, that we're rude, that we're quick to anger. We need to mend that perception. It's on us. We can control that side of us. We can apologize and go back and create action around those things and talk to the people that we hurt. Those are things that we are in control of. And regardless of the other side of it, which is the things you can't control, how they respond to you, if they refuse to receive it, if they won't forgive you, that is on them. Again, like I said, forgiveness is for the person. It's not really for you all. So if they don't forgive you, it's really on them, because they have to carry that burden. They have to carry the weight of it. And I don't encourage anyone to carry that weight or carry that burden. Forgive for you and move forward. The other thing is to smile more. And I know it's such a small thing. Every time I tell people to smile more, they usually laugh at me like, I don't understand. I'm not trying to smile. But the reason I say smile more, there's a reason behind that. It's more so smile with intention. So be intentional with smiling and being happy. And if you saw that commercial where the lady has the thing on the stick and she puts up the smiley face to show that she's smiling, that the reason that I say smile with intention is because we learn through repetition, but we also learn by, creating new habits and behaviors and allowing those things over time to become a part of our operating system. So a part of what you do all the time. So if I get up and I drive to Starbucks every day, or I drive to Starbucks one day and then the next day I go back to Starbucks, I'm creating a habit of going to Starbucks every morning at 7:30. You know what I mean? It's the same thing when it comes to our emotions and how we respond to things. If I get up every morning and say an affirmation in front of my mirror saying, I'm going to be happy, I am happy, I'm, beautiful, I'm awesome. After a while, I'm going to start feeling that way as well. That I'm worthy, that, that I'm special. And as you get into the motion of doing those things consistently, it does start to change your mindset. It does build you up better. It does make you think about things better. And it may not be perfect, but you will start to slowly and gradually change your mindset. If you get up in negativity, if you get up yelling, if you get up constantly, thinking about all the bad things that are going to happen, you're creating a mindset for yourself that is embedded in negativity. And that is something that you carry with you to work, around your kids, as you're yelling at the kids and being upset. You know, some mornings I have emotional imbalance because I'm stressed about something or I'm frustrated about something, and I ended up taking it out on the world around me. And then I don't realize that it's impacting my kids when they go to school, because they left the house with this negative air around them, like they were being suffocated by my energy. I have to do better and be better in those moments. And it does take a mindfulness moment of me being focused on that to say, I don't want them feeling that way when they leave the house. I need to do better. You know, I need to set a better tone. I need to set a better, example, and not allow my emotions to get away. Because when I see my kids get upset, when, Victoria gets mad at Parker and she like pops off, I can't be mad at that if I'm popping off at her. And I can't be mad at that if her older brothers pop off on her and I'm not correcting it. You know what I mean? So it's a cycle that we create that we have to unstitch and uncreate. I don't even know if that's really a word, but I said it. So, it's on us to kind of backtrack and pull that stuff out. And so, I implore you today, I always like to give those, I'm always saying, I challenge you, to keep that in the back of your mind as you're going through and being mindful each day, that these are things that we can control and we're not. And so it's on us to, create those controls and to do better in those moments, to understand, okay, I'm being a jerk. I need to take out the stitches and wheel it back. I apologize for being a jerk. I'm going to calm down, give them a hug, and have that conversation, because at the end of the day, it takes that suffocating air and it lets it dissipate. And everybody's back to a place of calm where everybody can be focused, because I don't know if you've ever felt a tension in a room. That's somebody's negative energy blowing us up, killing us, because we have to get out of that space. I don't like being around people that are upset and negative, that walk into an office and just suck all of the air out of it with their negativity, because it kind of, it spills over on you and you start feeling like, I got to get out of here. I could get up, go to the kitchen, make some coffee or something, or walk outside, or, I have to get away from that type of energy, because it's so strong and it's so uncomfortable. And sometimes having that conversation with someone to say, look, your energy is bad. Are you okay? I'm sensing that you're frustrated. Or I see that you're upset today. Do you need anything? Is there anything I can do? Do you need to just be left alone? Because sometimes we are there. We're in those moments. And, for us, we can control our emotional well-being. The only thing that we can control on that side is giving them the opportunity to separate themselves from others if they need it. But it's going to be their choice whether they want to do, any of that. But those controls that's the level of control we have in those situations, to say, is there anything I can do for you? Are you okay? Because I can sense your frustration. I can sense your anger. Because I don't want to be in your environment. I don't want to be in that. And I'm just trying to help you out a little bit, because I don't need to be in the negativity. So those are things that we can do to, further control the situations around us. But again, it's all on us, understanding that when we have poor emotional wellness, it impacts people around us. We need to create action around it. We need to be better. We need to learn to accept where we are in the process and say, you know what, I need to work on this. We have to receive it. We have to be aware of it. We have to build desire around it. We need to create action steps and put those steps into motion. And then we need to understand that it will take some time. It'll take some perseverance and time for us to grow past all of those emotions that we're feeling. So I just want you to know that it is within your power and that you can do it. And I actually because I'm an advocate for your wellness, and I say that a lot, often, it is my thing. I want to close out kind of breathing some positivity into the moment to allow your power to transition to purpose. So I have this poem. It's by Alex L. She's an author and wellness consultant. And the poem is called Resilience. And she's writing this short poem because she was in awe at just how resilient that we can be despite the experiences that we go through. And the poem says, look at you, still standing after being knocked down and thrown out. Look at you, still growing after being picked and plucked and prodded out of your home. Look at you, still dancing and singing after being defeated and disassembled. Look at you, love, still here and hopeful after it all. And, what I love about this is because it talks about, that we're more powerful than we know. That resilience is a part of our DNA. It's a part of the human being. No matter how tough things get, we can always find the power we need to come back. And of course, for those of us, you guys know that I'm a Christian, and I always say that, God never gives you more than you can bear. So all of the things that I go through, I have to always keep that in mind, that there's nothing that I can't overcome. There's no emotion, there's no situation, there's nothing that's around me that I can't overcome and be stronger and more resilient and better at the end of it. And so that's the mindset that I try to maintain all the time. When we talk about emotional wellness, it is something that is on us to control. Our emotions are ours. But we have to be in that mindfulness moment to understand what we're feeling and why. Explore the triggers as to why this is upsetting me. And it could be something that has happened to you in the past, some type of trauma that you never forgave and moved forward from. So, finding out why it causes that trigger. Why does someone cutting you off on the highway trigger such an extreme emotion from you? And maybe it's because somebody sideswiped you once and your car got totaled, and you just have that in your mind every time a car comes zooming up into your lane. There's so many reasons why we could be reacting the way we react. Some people just don't like stupid people. So you just get frustrated because somebody does something stupid. But there's always that emotional trigger as to why. Once you figure out the why, then you're able to create that balance. And again, I say go to the blog today if you haven't read it, because I go through this in detail in the blog. I really did. I don't know how they aligned, the blog topic and this aligned itself today. But yeah, just understanding that once we figure out the why, once we know what that trigger is, we need to create action around it. We need to, be able to balance ourselves around those emotions and ensure that we are living our best life, living more of our best moments than those negative moments. And anytime that we find ourselves having a 20-minute rant about something that we were frustrated about, we need to ask ourselves why. Because as you go through the process of why, you're going to start to eliminate some of those behaviors from your life. You're going to start eliminating some of those challenges from your life because you're not going to find them acceptable enough. There's not going to be a reason why you need to be that angry, or why you need to be that frustrated, or why you need to be that stressed out. You will start to find yourself coming to a place of peace and calm. And so that's what I'll give you for today when we close out, is ask yourself why. The next time you get angry, the next time something triggers you, ask yourself why. Create action around that why. And I'm telling you, after a while, it's just going to stop happening. It's just going to get better. So appreciate y'all so much. And just so you know, in March, it'll be March 2nd. We'll have our next call. And the Zoom link is always on Facebook or on my website page, positiveadvancement.com. You can go to upcoming events and you can see everything going on. If you want to RSVP, register. The book signing link is on there if you want to come to the book signing next week. If you have any kids, the youth event starts on the 24th. That's a Saturday. And we're also doing March the 3rd, 2nd or the 3rd. So maybe it's the 1st. I might have my dates a little funky. Yeah. So the 1st, March 1st is our next monthly call. And we are doing spiritual wellness on that particular call. April, we are doing financial wellness, and we will have 2 guest speakers on the financial wellness call. I'm going to be posting their bios up in the next few weeks so that you can see them. But both are financial experts on, savings, maintaining your money, financial wellness, creating a plan, creating a budget. They'll be talking about all of those items on the April call. So that it will be exciting. I'm excited about that one and having them on the call to kind of get us there. And then May, we'll have social wellness. June and July will be physical wellness. And we are also adding an outdoor wellness walk for either June or July during that process with one of our fitness gurus who will be out in the woods walking with us, giving us tips and tricks for our potential physical wellness journey. So if you're interested in that, things will be posted so you can register and be a part of that. These will all be free events, of course. And then you'll see some other things that are upcoming that we'll be doing. So I'm excited all about it. Every month will be a new adventure. And if if you have questions, you can always message me or send me an email or send me a chat through one of the forums, either Facebook or the website or LinkedIn. All right, guys. So I want you to have a wonderful weekend. I thank you for joining. I'll see you next month.